Well, in the fight for election integrity, one community has suffered the most. One America's Chanel Rion has more from Washington.
Here with us in studios, Dr. Carol Swain. Thank you so much for joining us.
I'm always happy to join you.
Watching this election, watching how the Democrats are weaponizing the Black community right now, especially as we're talking about election integrity, you've been pretty outspoken about this matter.
Well, I'm watching what has taken place, and I'm wondering what happened to America as I know it, as I've known it over the decades. And in particular, I was dismayed when the Supreme Court did not intervene, given the clear constitutional violations. I felt that the state of Texas did have standing to raise the issues that they did. And when I look at the state of Georgia, in particular, Stacey Abrams, and the fact that she is able to control the governor and the Secretary of State, that she has those people so intimidated by her that they have relaxed the normal things that you would do in an election when it comes to verifying the voter signatures, verifying addresses, and just the normal things that you do to protect the integrity of the ballot. And I believe that that's being done because the leaders in Georgia are so afraid of being called racist that they have allowed her to intimidate them by telling them that if you enforce the normal procedures for casting a vote, that somehow that is voter suppression.
Swain is a retired professor who taught law and politics at Vanderbilt and Princeton. Her scholarly work on voter suppression and voting rights has been cited 3 times by the Supreme Court in seminal cases on election rights. Based on her background and her study on the history of voting, Swain says if anyone is disenfranchising and abusing the Black community, it is the Democrat Party in the 2020 election, using thinly veiled excuses like voter suppression and race in order to cheat in the election.
And I believe that the Democrats came up with that because they knew that President Trump was making significant inroads among Black people. He significantly increased his percentage of the Black support, and they found a way to use race to really disenfranchise the Black and white Trump supporters. I believe President Trump won Georgia and other states. I think that if there were not voter suppression and voter fraud, which I believe took place, especially in those urban areas, the president would clearly have won by a landslide. The Black community tends to be manipulated by the Democrats, but also I would argue that white people have just given up their voice, that white conservatives are so afraid of being called racist. They don't want to be called racist. No one wants to be called a racist, and consequently they are not enforcing our Constitution, and they are allowing violations of our civil liberties in the name of social justice. They're so afraid of systemic racism, and when they do that, they harm all Americans, especially people of color.
Swain adds Republicans are complicit if they refuse to take a stand when it comes to election integrity, and this harms everyone, regardless of race.
And for some reason, Republicans seem to be just cowards. At the national level, I would think that they would be united behind President Trump at this time when it comes to his push to get election reform, because the cheating that clearly took place in 2020, that's been going on. It took place in 2018. 2018 was the warm-up for 2020. And so Republicans, you would think they would stand together. No, they are not standing together. Those who were up for re-election, like Mitch McConnell, who had a tight race, now that they're reelected, it seems to be business as usual. I find that totally unacceptable. And I believe that Republican voters need to call their representatives, House members, and senators and tell them that we expect more from them.
Swain adds, President Trump has paved the way for the Republicans in creating a new following in the Black community. But Republicans can easily lose this momentum.
President Trump got 18% of the Black male support. I think that whether or not Blacks stick with Republicans, it depends on what they do. And they need to build on what President Trump has been trying to do and what he successfully accomplished. And had it been an honest election, there's no way the Democrats could have lost as much of the minority vote that they did and still win the election. And the fact that President Trump did so well among minorities, even though he's always been painted as a racist and a white supremacist, to me, it's just further evidence that this was a stolen election, and Republicans seem bent on allowing the Democrats to get away with it.